Hello and welcome. Tonight, airstrikes on terrorist hideouts in Borno and Niger states leave several terrorists dead, and that's according to the Nigerian Air Force. Catholic Archbishop of Abuja Diocese, Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, attributes security challenges to high cost of living, asks federal government to act decisively in dealing with increasing hunger. Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, disowns list of former governors being investigated for alleged corruption. And Israeli military shuts Kerem Shalom crossing in the aftermath of rockets launched by Hamas from the Gaza Strip. We begin with security, and the Nigerian Air Force says the air component of operations Hadinkai and Royal Punch in the northeast and north central has killed several terrorists in airstrikes in Borno and Niger states. This was revealed in a statement by the Director of Public Relations and Information of the Nigerian Air Force, Air Vice Marshal Edward Gapquet. Edward Gapquet said the air components had continued to obliterate terrorists and destroy their structures, equipment and mobility, thereby limiting their ability to attack ground troops and innocent Nigerians at will. In the northeast, he said the air interdiction was on May the 3rd authorized and conducted over Chinene, a location tucked inside the Mandara mountain. According to him, 7 gun trucks were observed parked on the trees within the same location. He said the battle damage assessment revealed that the strikes were successful as several terrorists were killed and logistics destroyed. According to AVM Gapquet, similar airstrikes were conducted same day by the air component of Operation Royal Punch in the preemptive airstrike over terrorists hibernating at Alawa village near Shiroro town in Niger State. The NAF spokesman said the mission was conducted following credible intelligence, which revealed the migration of terrorists into the village after the mass exit of locals for fear of their safety. The Deputy National President of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association, Mr. Zarma Mustafa, has blamed the current fuel scarcity situation in the country on the nation's inability to increase its refining capacity. Mr. Mustafa believes that the incessant scarcity spells can be curbed with the establishment of more refineries. While asking the federal government to bring the independent marketers into a conglomerate that can set up a sizable refinery, he's urging state governors to consider refineries as a form of investment for their individual states.
They will do it as an investment, not as a government thing of doing things to the citizens free. No, they should come together to garner enough funds, even if it is 30% of the cost to build. Assuming to build a 200,000 barrels capacity refinery will cost like $5 billion today. Just a rough estimate. $5 billion will build a 200,000 barrels capacity for you as at today. If they can raise $1 billion together, I believe they can get the financiers and the partners that will key in, because we have the market, we have the population, we have the market in this country. And don't forget, Nigeria is the major driver of the economy of the whole of West Africa. If we can produce enough and we cannot consume it, the market of the whole of West Africa is in our hands.
To catch the complete interview, watch Newsnight on Monday by 9 p.m. across all channels, television platforms. Now, the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja Diocese, Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, is asking the federal government to arrest the high cost of living in the country, as many Nigerians are being impoverished on a daily basis. Speaking in Abuja at a special mass in honor of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Bishop Kaigama says the increasing hunger in the country is fueling insecurity. The cleric believes the federal government can stem the tide of insecurity in the country by addressing the high cost of living.
And in this present situation, things are tough and rough. And we hope that the poor can get some support. And we appeal to these people in this position of responsibility to do the needful. And they should not look to one side. They should face squarely the problem. We have the problem of hunger, problem of insecurity. People are just not settled and they are hungry. They can't go to farm because it's not safe. And the food items, the prices are so high. So I hope that something can be done. We want stability, we want peace, we want unity. This cannot be possible when people cannot feed well and when they are not safe. So let us do it together. We can do it. Nigeria has the capacity and everything it takes to provide for our people. We can do it, our president can do it, and those who work with him can do it. Let us do it together.
Meanwhile, the president of the Trade Union Congress, Festus Osifo, is asking the federal and state governments to come up with their negotiation on the proposed 615,000 naira by the organized labor. Mr. Osifo explains that the present economic situation has led to a hike in food items, transportation and other domestic products, and government must seriously address the wage of workers to meet their needs. He was speaking on our political program, Sunday Politics.
If you are going into negotiations, you don't go with your barest minimum. That is not how it is done. So if you are going into negotiations, you look at, from your own point of view, what do you think is fair, looking at all the parameters. So you put everything together. So it is now when you take that, value, or rather that position, the other party will now also come to the table with their own positions. Then you will now start counter-argument, offer and counter offer before the minimum wage is arrived at. So that 615,000 naira is what the labor, TUC and NLC felt that with this amount, an average Nigeria will tend to be comfortable. But what we are saying is that this is our charter of demand to government. So the federal government will bring its demand, or rather its offer. The state government will bring its offer. Same thing. The organized private sector will make their case. Because in that tripartite committee, you have 6 state governors in that committee. You have 6 representation from the federal government in that committee. The organized private sector, they are about 12. Then labor, we have TUC 6, NLC 6. So that is the composition of that committee.
It's no longer a question of if, but when will the federal government announce the new minimum wage for workers? This followed the announcement on Workers' Day that the government will commence the implementation of the new wage from May the 1st. Well, this year's Workers' Day was marked at a time economic headwinds like inflation, currency devaluation have all led to a cost of living crisis. In this next report, our correspondent, Laddie Williams, takes a look at the historical trend of minimum wage increases in Nigeria as the challenge of inflation remains.
The issue of wage determination has been an age-old problem, as bargaining between labor and authorities usually take a tough process that often results in taking an average wage consideration, which most times does not reflect the economic realities. It's no different in Nigeria, as the issue of minimum wage tussle between government and labor continues to linger. Let's take a trip back to the 70s. During the oil boom era, as the Arab-Israeli War of October 1973 rose crude oil prices fourfold within 5 months. From an average price of $3 per barrel in 1973, it was going for $12 by December 1974. At the time, public sector minimum wage was 18 naira in 1970, equivalent to $25. As the government's revenue increased, the government's scope and scale also grew. In 1972, the military government established the Udoji Public Service Review Commission to scrutinize the arrangement, framework, and administration of the public service.
It seems that Chief Udoji, and through the subsequent actions of the federal government in approving his recommendations, they hadn't learned from history, because the history was that anytime you had these sort of pay rises given to civil servants, there was always a backlash from the public, from the private sector. And that happened in 1971. And it's happened before that in the colonial era.
After the Udoji award era to a more recent time, it was a long journey to 18,000 naira minimum wage, with the Senate passed into law in 2011. From then, the Buhari administration also moved to increase the minimum wage from 18,000 naira to 30,000 naira in 2019, equivalent to $193 at an exchange rate of 155 naira to the dollar. Headline inflation at the time was at 11.37% and food inflation at 13.7%. In the past 10 years, the naira has seen its value eroded as oil proceeds dwindle, which has led the Central Bank of Nigeria to intervene in the FX market in defense of the naira. In 2014, the naira was trading at the official window at 157 naira to the dollar and 171 naira at the parallel market. Headline inflation was at 8% and food inflation at 9.3% as of January 2014. Fast forward to 2024, the naira is down over 600% in 10 years after major reforms in the FX market, pegging the current minimum wage of 30,000 naira, equivalent to $22, at 1,339 naira to the dollar. Compared to the likes of South Africa and Kenya, Nigeria has the lowest minimum wage in dollar terms. With the double whammy of currency devaluation and sky-high inflation, labor unions have clamored for higher wages for workers with threats of industrial action after the removal of fuel subsidy.
What will be the minimum wage that will remove hunger? The UN said that the poorest man should be fed on $2 per day. That's the poorest. And if you have a family of 6 people, at $2 per day by 6 is $12. In a month, you have $360, which translates to about 700,000 naira. Is that the minimum wage you are talking of? Is that what will feed you? On feeding alone. I'm not talking on transportation and accommodation. The
Tinubu administration, in a bid to cushion the effect of subsidy removal, announced a 35,000 naira wage award, bringing the total amount to 65,000 naira. Our Washington correspondent, Maria Bird, spoke to the Kaduna State governor about implementation.
For me, I think it is a work in progress. In Kaduna State in particular, we have a very good relationship between Kaduna State government and Nigeria Labour Congress. Every state has its own peculiarity. The federal government have taken an approach where, as we are speaking, already the federal government is paying 35,000 wage award.
Meanwhile, the president has recently appealed to all 36 governors to make the wage award payment to help workers and also give the economy a chance to absorb wage increases without a corresponding rise in inflation. With inflation rate at 33.2% in March 2024, what would an over 100% wage increase mean for inflation?
Minimum wage has components where it leads to inflation. One is the announcement effect. Once you announce that there's a minimum wage increase, people try to jack up the price. The second one is that is it a money illusion effect? Is it that people it's just increase in wages and then prices increase? And 3, the arrears effect. The effective date of the minimum wage, when is it going to be? Is it going to be when the negotiation started, or is it going to be now? If there's an arrears effect, that even multiplies and compounds the inflationary impact.
In trying to find the right number when it comes to minimum wage payments, the Tinubu government set up a 37-member tripartite committee comprising of representatives of the federal and state governments, private sector, and organized labor, charged with the responsibility of recommending a new national minimum wage for Nigerian workers. But what amount will be right at this time?
Let us imagine that everybody is being asked to pay 600,000 or 450,000 naira. How can you survive in those circumstances? So I think there's some posturing, there's some negotiation, and generally speaking, at the end of the day, we probably end up closer to what the equivalent of what 30,000 was in dollars in today's market, maybe about 90,000 to 100,000 naira.
Maybe the government should pay at least the lowest minimum wage to be like 500,000 per person. I think it will serve a purpose and to go a long way.
I wish if the government can increase this minimum wage to, let's say, 150, I don't know if it's too much, but this is what I'm just saying. 150, so that the way the currency is increasing, and dollar is increasing, the price of things are not even reducing, and it's so sad. So I would like the government to hear the cries of the citizen, most especially me. I'm very hungry.
Negotiations are ongoing on a new national minimum wage for Nigerian workers. But while Nigerians await that, the federal government approved an increase of between 25 to 35% in salaries for civil servants on 6 consolidated salary structures, which include consolidated public service salary structure and others. But with revenues dwindling, debt levels rising, it remains to be seen what the new national minimum wage will be, as federal and state governments and labor have to be on the same page, or at least the same book. Laddie Williams, reporting for Channels Television News.
In part 2 after the break, Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria and the Office of the National Security Advisor to set up joint coordination room at airports to facilitate passengers check-in. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Airstrikes on terrorist hideouts in Borno and Niger states leaves several terrorists dead, and that's according to the Nigerian Air Force. Catholic Archbishop of Abuja Diocese, Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, attributes security challenges to high cost of living, asks federal government to act decisively in dealing with increasing hunger. Economic and Financial Crimes Commission disowns list of former governors being investigated for alleged corruption. And Israeli military shot Kerem Shalom crossing in the aftermath of rockets launched by Hamas from the Gaza Strip. On March the 28th, 2022, armed terrorists attacked a passenger train traveling from Abuja to Kaduna. During the attack, several were killed and many kidnapped. Earlier this week, the Nigeria police arrested the suspected mastermind of that tragedy. Tonight, Babajide Ogusol, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is right here to share more insights on this story. Babajide, great to have you again on the news today.
Good evening, Ayotunde.
Yes, indeed. So the mastermind of that train attack on the Abuja-Kaduna highway, his name, Abdullahi, that's Ibrahim Abdullahi. Well, he's finally been nabbed by the police. So, but before we look into that, let's talk about the passenger, confidence. Has it been restored, now that this development has come into light?
It depends on how we want to measure passenger confidence on our train service. Right now, there are no polls that strictly measures the confidence of passengers traveling on the various transportation networks. Perhaps the closest we can take a look at is to look at what was the frequency of travel prior to the attack, look at what happened in the quarter of the attack, and look at what has happened since. But one way to first of all understand this, and the number to keep in mind, is 13,000. That was the number of travelers, average number of travelers on our train service as at 2014.
13,000.
13,000. That was 2014. So that was a big number. And then the government was hoping that those numbers will get to 30,000 on an average daily and eventually to 50,000. But here are the numbers that we have currently from the National Railway Service and the National Bureau of Statistics. They make it clear that in the first quarter of 2022, which was the quarter when the train attack happened, March 28, average number of tickets sold per day, 10,590. Clearly, after the train attack in March and the train services were suspended, especially for Abuja, Kaduna, those numbers dropped in the second quarter. So we clearly see the reason why the numbers have moved from an average of 10,590 daily to an average to less than 5,000 tickets sold on a daily. And those were the same type of numbers we had in the second quarter of 2022 of that year, and in the fourth quarter of 2022, expected because of the festive season. It was getting close to Christmas, more people used the train service. Well, here are the shocking numbers for last year. The National Railway Service has made it clear that even though in 2014 we had an average of 13,000 tickets sold on a daily, last year, first quarter, less than 5,000 tickets sold on an average every day. Last year, second quarter, just a little over 5,000 tickets sold on an average every day. Q3, Q4, the numbers improved better, but significantly not close to where we were even a decade ago. So in summary, the good news is, now listen carefully to this. The good news is, yes, passengers are going on the train service. The train service is safer. The security agencies, especially the military, have been able to put in infrastructure, aerial surveillance to make sure passengers are more comfortable. But the bad news clearly is passengers still feel that in terms of the frequency of the train services, the reliability in terms of timing, the quality of onboard service, people are still a bit reluctant. And so, yes, we might no longer have so much of a security perception problem on the train service. What the National Railway Service needs now is a communication solution to allow Nigerians be more comfortable and understand what routes the rail services offer. We're in a situation where, Ayotunde, we have 100 million adults in the country. Yet, on an average daily, just about 7,000 tickets are being sold. In simple terms, for every 100,000 adults, only 7 people use the train every day. You heard that right. On an average, every day, for a country that has 100,000 adults,
100 million.
100 million, with the train service numbers that we see, the relative proportion is only 7 out of every 100,000 adults use the train service every day. So clearly, the train service is significantly under potential. Good news, confidence is improving. People are using the train service, but we are now back to where the numbers were even as of 2014.
Which brings me to my next question. Of course, the police has said that they were able to get the alleged mastermind of this train attack through the collaboration from other security agencies. But the question is, why do you think it took so long, to get the alleged mastermind of this attack?
So this is really good news, and I think one of the things the police have done in cooperating with the military agencies is they made the alleged mastermind, Ibrahim Abdullahi, they made even Nigerians believe that they were looking for the man. But the reality is they were really not looking for him. And I'd like us to take a look at some of the key things that had happened after the train service, and I'll explain a bit more why the police really were not looking for the alleged mastermind and they were looking for something else. Yes, 28th of March, that event happened. But the biggest news was last year when the police confirmed the arrest of the suspect who supplies arms to the Abuja Kaduna criminals. And so what the police really did was, rather than look for Abdullahi, they kept looking for the man who Abdullahi was looking for. In simple terms, they were really not after Abdullahi. They believed that if they caught the man or the gang that supplied Abdullahi weapons, then they will find Abdullahi. And so that news last year was the beginning of the end of Abdullahi. Once the police, in cooperation with other security agencies, had found the key man that supplied weapons to these Abuja, Kaduna criminals, then it was going to be easier for them to find Abdullahi. And so if you look at that timeline, about a year after the Abuja, Kaduna attack happened, they found the criminal that supplied weapons to the criminals, and then about a year after that, we've been able to find the man that's been alleged to have spearheaded these attacks. And so I think that was the right strategy to use. It made even Abdullahi believe the police were looking after him, but meanwhile, the evidence showed that the police did it was a ploy. Abdullahi was really not the man that they were after.
Very systematic approach indeed, even though it took quite a while, like you rightly pointed out. But let's look at the national perception now, of course, of transportation security, especially on that Abuja-Kaduna axis. What is it like now?
And so one way is we could take a look at the national perception of security nationally, because that gives us an idea of what is happening in Kaduna and the region where Kaduna is, which is the Northwest. And to be fair, we also then have to look at what exactly is the perception of security across the other 5 regions. So if we take a look at what the national security perception from citizens when they were asked, is security improving? These are the results, comparing it to what had happened, the same questions posed in 2022 and 2023. The Northwest, and I would like us to take a bit of time understanding this, as of February 2022, 44% of families living in the Northwest believed security was improving. That declined a year after in February 2023 to 39%. But in the most recent survey, citizens in the Northwest say security has improved. So that's 46% compared to this time last year, 39% in February. In North Central, February 2023, it was 43%. In February 2024, 45%. In summary, families living in the North Central believe that security and the military and other security agencies are doing well. In the Northeast, things seem to be the same. 58% February last year, February this year, 58%. Same goes with the Southwest. The challenge we currently have is in the South-South, where last year the numbers looked good, 52%. The numbers are slightly down now to 49%. In the Southeast, families are giving a green mark to how they feel about security. So in all 6 regions, 3 are positive relative to last year, 2 neutral, the same, and 1 down. So it depends on how you want to look at it, but overall we see 3 in green, 2 the same, and 1 in red. But you know, perhaps, and I have this here, I just wanted to quickly show why this is important. Recently, we've seen what Tunde Onokai has done in chess, and one of the things that strikes me is a statement that it couldn't achieve that alone. Yes, we have millions of talented Nigerians everywhere. Tunde had mentioned that he needed to do that. He could only achieve that because people cooperated with him. Davido came. Even the chess player that he was up with, he needed people. And one thing that strikes is, across all of Guinness Book's world records, there is no record of any man or woman that has been able to lift this stone by just 1 finger. No record. No one in the world. None of the world's 8 billion people has a record of being able to lift this by yourself.
As far as modern history is concerned.
Not possible. For you to do this, you need cooperation. This is the only way you could do this. 2 fingers. You need cooperation. And so if we look at what has happened on the Abuja, Kaduna, how the security agencies have been able to do it, it has been the people cooperating with security agencies. In summary, the outlook of Nigeria and the outlook of security is this: cooperation. No one, not the military, not the civil force, not the civil society, will be able to do this by themselves. We need to cooperate more. And so, just as the armed forces have said recently that if you see something, say something. Recently, we've seen even the leader of the chief of the military, the armed forces, talk about how important it is for Nigerians to cooperate with the military. Like I said, like Tunde Onokoye has said, the only way forward is to be together. The only way we can achieve more is for us to do more.
And we'll definitely leave it at that. Babajide Ogunsanya.
I was hoping that we'll do more and we'll be able to cooperate more, but surely May, next month, we're already in May, and definitely we're going to be doing a lot more of this analysis when the president marks 1 year in office.
I will definitely keep tabs on that one. Thank you so much again, Babajide Ogunsanya.
The pleasure is all mine today.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, has dissociated itself from a viral report in some sections of the media claiming it has released a full list of former governors being investigated for alleged corruption. In a press statement, the commission described the report with headline, EFCC releases full list of 58 ex-governors that embezzled 2.187 trillion naira as false and mischievous, adding that it neither issued the said list nor entertained discussions on investigation of former governors with any news medium. While calling on the public to ignore the report, the Commission asked the media to endeavor to cross-check facts pertaining to matters under investigation with the Commission in order to avoid misleading the public with false and inaccurate reports. Still ahead on the news at 10, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Choice International Group, Diana Chen, hosts the 2024 set of graduates of the Schwartzman Scholars Program in Lagos. Please join us again. Welcome back. As part of plans to streamline passenger facilitation processes at the nation's terminals, the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, FAN, and the Office of the National Security Advisor have said that on a long term, a joint coordination room is to be developed at the nation's international airports. This is to enable various security agencies view CCTV camera footages for a closer look at passenger baggage instead of manual search. According to the Managing Director of FAN, Mrs. Olubomi Kuku, this action is expected to reduce physical contact with passengers' baggage. The FAN boss, who gave this indication in a chat with journalists, however, said in the short term, the number of military and paramilitary personnel will be reduced in order to avoid delays and numerous inconveniences to travelers. Months after a devastating windstorm ravaged the Alosi community in Kiana local government area of Nasarawa State, many residents are still grappling with the aftermath effect. While some have managed to rebuild their houses with the help of stakeholders, others are appealing to the state government for assistance. In this next report, our correspondent Halima Gayam speaks with some of the survivors on their plight.
The people of Alosi community are slowly recovering from their losses after a devastating windstorm incident. The sound of hammers and nails echoes through the streets of the hitherto despaired settlements as some affected persons have begun to repair their homes. Thanks to the support of stakeholders who donated cash and building materials. While some affected residents can afford to rebuild their houses after receiving zinc and cement support, others who cannot afford to do same still have their houses lying as rubble with blown-off roofs still open as the people continue the struggle to get their shelter restored before the rains set in heavily.
It's only God that has been giving enough things to human being. But what we have been getting is not sufficient yet. But the Nema people came here last week to go and observe what is going on.
Zuera and Amina are widows who lost their husband about a year ago. Their house is among the affected. Though in receipt of zinc and cement, they are unable to begin repairs and have only found respite from the ripple effect of the storm. This tree, which was uprooted during the windstorm, is what is providing shelter for Zuera and her family during the day. At night, they sleep in this uncompleted house offered to them by their neighbor. No rains, they sleep. But when it rains, they stay up all night because the roof of this house is also affected by the windstorm. It is a near-hopeless situation for Zuera and her family of 9 who are appealing for government support.
The government to help us to repair our house because we don't have anybody and we are poor. We don't have anyone to help us. The government should help us with zinc and cement.
As the community continue to distribute relief items received so far, they eagerly anticipate a comprehensive response, hoping for a total turnaround in their recovery journey. Halima Gayam, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the federal government has reaffirmed its commitment to address the root causes of ecological challenges across the country in order to protect lives and property of citizens. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, stated this while commissioning the Koton-Karfe flood control project in Koton-Karfe, Kogi State. He also assured that the federal government is taking proactive measures to mitigate occurrences of flood disasters and other related ecological problems through its intervention programs.
The 2022 flood, which ravaged various parts of the country, including Kotenkarfe, resulted in untold human and economic disruption. The gridlock that ensued here at Kotenkarfe, Abuja-Lokoja Highway, served as a stark reminder of the urgent need for comprehensive flood control measures in the area. Matching words with action is why the federal government, through the National Hydroelectric Power Producing Area, constructed a drainage at the cost of 420 million naira, with a total length of 625 meters to control the cause of the flooding in Kotenkarfe, and the SGF is here to commission it. The venue for the commissioning is filled with top-ranking traditional rulers, legislators, residents of Kotenkarfe, top government functionaries, Deputy Governor of the state, Joel Salifu, representative of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and officials of Hyperdeck. The event begins with an address by the traditional rulers of Kotenkarfe.
I want to use this opportunity to appeal through Your Excellency to the management of Hyperdeck that in their next budget, they should please consider completing the project by awarding the northern part of the drainage system.
In his remarks, the managing director of Hyperdeck assures that the project will put an end to the recurring incidents of flooding in the affected community, just as the Kogi State Governor, represented by his deputy, expressed gratitude to the federal government for its intervention projects.
This project, representing an investment of about 420 million naira, stands not just as a fiscal structure, but as a symbol of resilience, unity, and collective action.
This project and other embarked upon by the government stand a testament to the power of proactive governance and the resilience of the Kogi people.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, before commissioning the project, said the flood control project is part of government's efforts to forestall the recurrence of the 2022 flood with its attendant loss of property and hardship on the people of Kotenkarfe and its environs.
In the light of these present realities, that the federal government, through Hyperdeck, took decisive action to address the root causes of flooding and mitigate its impact here in Kogi and other states where the Commission operates.
With this drainage system, the annual perennial flooding may now be a thing of the past, as the roads will now be motorable without being flooded.
In her desire to inspire the next generation of leaders, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Choice International Group, Chief Diana Chen, has played host to the 2024 Schwartzman Scholars in her office in Victoria Island, Lagos. The event, tagged Conversation with Chief Diana Chen, provided an opportunity for the 17 young adults who benefited from the Schwartzman Scholars Graduate Program, a joint China-US effort to cultivate the next generation of young global leaders.
The 2024 set of graduates drawn from different continents who benefited from the Schwartzman Scholars Program were hosted by the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Choice International Group, Diana Chen, who had an interactive session with them. Before settling down for the business of the day, the young leaders were taken to see vehicles on display at the GOC Motor Showroom. After the welcome formalities, it's time to go into the conversations.
Is there any specific scene that kind of informed you on what kind of value you choose to adopt in your decision-making process for GAC, and that also goes to other Chinese folks in the room?
I think something that I would like to discuss and again have a conversation about is the specific plans that you're having. One conversation that Theo and I had since the moment we landed.
Since change too fast, so if we are able to use 3 years to deliver something happen, I think it's already good enough for us.
It turned out to be an inspiring session for the young, aspiring leaders.
It was amazing to spend a few hours of her precious time to listen to her, listen to her story, and perhaps draw an inspiration for something that we can also do and maybe move the African continent forward.
I think for me, the most inspiring thing was she said that, always look for something that is not comfortable. So she left some of her comforts back in China to then move to a country that is still developing and still coming up and then contribute to that economy.
So as someone not from the business sector, I've really been enlightened to see how business can be a tool for international collaboration as well as, improving people's livelihoods and improving job creation.
The host speaks on the importance of the conversation.
They are representing the brilliant global young leaders. Trust them, they can give us a lot of big change. So this conversation also a building that a conversation with Chief Director, who are already had the experience to working in Nigeria. So are able to carry those young leaders that we will deliver the bright future together.
The Schwarzman Scholars Program, which began in 2013, is a one-year fully funded master's program at Tsinghua University in Beijing, China's first-ranked university, and it's designed to build a global community of future leaders across industries.
In Taraba State, Governor Abdullahi is threatening to deal with any individual or group bent on sabotaging his free education policies and 50% tuition fees / in tertiary institutions across the state. The governor is also threatening to invite the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to monitor the implementation of the World Bank-assisted projects in the state in order to ensure transparency and accountability. The governor was speaking when the Taraba State University Visitation Panel submitted its report on the findings on the institution.
On 5th January 2024, Governor Agbu Kefas inaugurated a visitation panel to the Taraba State University to critically look into the institution's governance, management and operational framework, among several other terms of reference. 4 months down the line, the panel is done with its task and is here to submit its report. Findings, according to the report, reveal that the institution's management requires a total and comprehensive overhaul to save it from collapse. Having received the report, the governor assures of meticulous perusal for implementation of their recommendations.
All the money that some lecturers are collecting from them in the name of handout and all these things, some unnecessary billing, they will vomit it at the right time. And if in your report they are found wanting, we will suspend the management of the university. We will suspend them. We want to do the right thing. We need the right people in the right place to do what is right. I'm not here to joke because I'm talking about the destiny of 4 million people.
The governor also met with heads of implementing agencies of World Bank-assisted projects in Taraba State behind closed doors. Speaking through his chief press secretary, the governor threatened to invite the EFCC to monitor compliance to standard and ensure the projects have direct bearing on the lives of residents.
It's giving them confidence that if they do the right thing, you always found all the projects that intervention from World Bank, from UNICEF, and other donor agencies. Still going to do its own part, and has been doing its own part of the bargain.
I'm here through allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria at all times.
The state governor also inaugurated 4 new special advisors, Christian and Muslim Pilgrims Welfare Board members, as well as the Board of Taraba Internal Revenue Services.
In Yola State, Governor Maimala Buni has approved a 25-year Damaturu master plan and aims to replicate same in the 5 major cities of Potiskum, Gashua, Nguru Gaydam, and Buniyadi. The governor, who disclosed this while inspecting digital equipment and commissioning of new Yola State Geographic Information Service Complex, also directed all land vendors in the state to register before being allowed to operate.
In 2020, 1 year after Governor Mai Mala Buni came on board, a bill was passed into law to establish the State's Geographic Information Services with the aim of processing all land documents in the state. A total of 179 million naira was recorded in processing land documents in the last 3 years, hence increasing the internally generated revenue of the state.
The revenue we have generated so far from processing only from April 2021 to date is amounting to 179 million naira. We would like to mention that this effort you have made so far in transforming land administration will go a long way. And I will tell you that in decades to come, people will always remember that we are the pace setter for this new digital process.
Governor Mai Mala Buni, while inspecting digital equipment procured by the agency, announced a 25-year Damaturu master plan, in addition to a mandatory registration for all land vendors in the state to enable them operate.
I have approved the contract for the production of 25-year Damaturu master plan, and I am pleased to inform you that the team of experts engaged by the state government are ready to commence work. To reduce the menace of land grabbing, racketeering, and scam, I hereby direct that all land vendors must be registered for proper records and security before they are allowed to operate. Similarly, all filling stations, hotels, bakeries, and water factories, private school, corner shops, and other commercial businesses in the state must settle their dues.
With a recent increase in population resulting from the relative peace being recorded in the state, approving the Damaturu Master Plan will increase its revenue generation as well as discourage construction of unapproved structures in the state.
And now to the arts. Landscapes of My Fatherland is a solo exhibition by Oluwafemi Otoki at the My Dream Gallery in Lagos. Now, the artist captures interesting sceneries and beautiful sights across the country in paintings, and we see them all on Art Review tonight.
The beauty of landscapes and a passion for preservation of the environment has given rise to this solo exhibition by Oluwafemi Otoki at the My Dream Gallery in Lagos.
It's a way of documenting the way of life of our people. You have in some rural areas people living on water, moving around with canoes. You will see some of our communities, rural settings, you have rusted rooftops, you have rustic buildings. It's a way of telling the people how we live. My vision is to document these landscapes for the future generation. You will discover that as developments begin to creep in, we begin to lose some of those things, and someone needs to document them for posterity. What I want the viewers to take home is that we should preserve what we have. We should preserve our culture. We have a rich culture, we have a rich heritage. Some people travel abroad to see beautiful sceneries and landscapes. We do have them here in Nigeria as well. If you go to our rural settings, there are fantastic rural landscapes to enjoy and take in.
To achieve these landscape images, the artist had to travel to several states across the country.
Welcome to Sports News. Nigeria's Rivers Hoopers beat Rwanda's APR 86-82 at the Basketball Africa League to record back-to-back wins in the Sahara Conference earlier this evening at the Dakar Arena. The Yola State team, who recorded an impressive 77-68 points win against Senegal's AS Douane on Saturday, returned to action today to continue their fairy tale run, winning the first quarter 19-18. The Rwanda side clinched the second quarter 22-21. However, the Nigerian side didn't back down, winning the third and fourth quarters 23-22 and 23-20 points. Will Perry was the best performer for Rivers Hoopers with 31 points, 4 rebounds and 3 assists. The team will return to the court on Tuesday when they face Tunisia's US Monastir. To the EPL, Liverpool responded to Jurgen Klopp's call to end his stay on a high as a 4-2 victory over Tottenham further dented Spurs' hopes of a top 4 finish earlier this evening. Klopp's men are guaranteed to finish not lower than third and close the gap on leaders Arsenal to 5 points with just 2 games remaining. Spurs have now lost 4 consecutive games to leave Ange Postecoglou's men still 7 points adrift of 4th place Aston Villa. Chelsea have strengthened their chances of securing European football next season, cruising to a 5-0 victory against West Ham at Stamford Bridge. João Pedro netted a late winner to hold Aston Villa's charge to qualify for the Champions League, as Brighton deservedly claimed a 1-0 victory at the Amex Stadium. Vice President Kashim Shettima has departed Abuja for Dallas in the United States to represent President Bola Tinubu at the 2024 U.S.-Africa Business Summit hosted by the Corporate Council on Africa. A statement by Senior Special Assistant on Media and Communications, Stanley Kwacha, says the Vice President will join other political and business leaders across Africa, the United States of America and beyond for the summit, featuring high-level dialogues, networking business sessions and the plenary. Others among African leaders expected at the summit include President Joseph Boakai of the Republic of Liberia, President Lazarus Chakwera of the Republic of Malawi, President João Lourenço of the Republic of Angola, President Mokgweetsi Masisi of the Republic of Botswana, President José Maria Neves of the Republic of Cabo Verde, and the Deputy Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Lesotho, Honorable Ntomeng Majara. Besides the summit plenary, Senator Shettima is expected to speak at the roundtable on African infrastructure investment with a focus on impact and returns. He's also scheduled to speak on a high-level panel on agribusiness, focusing on transiting from food insecurity to thriving agribusinesses. The statement also adds that the Vice President will speak at a plenary session on navigating Africa's energy future, chair a session dedicated to promoting the Invest in Nigeria initiative, as well as attend other meetings and engagements on the sidelines of the summit. The Israeli military has closed the Kerem Shalom crossing with Gaza after Hamas fired rockets from within the strip. Israeli media says at least 10 people were injured, some seriously. The crossing is one of the few routes to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. The attack came as mediators in Egypt held talks to broker a ceasefire and to release Israeli hostages. Israel has said it will not accept Hamas's demands to end the Gaza war. Israeli Defense Forces said 10 projectiles were fired from an area near the Rafah crossing in southern Gaza, located approximately 3.6 kilometers from Kerem Shalom. The projectiles were reportedly fired from a site some 350 meters from a civilian shelter, and were another clear example of the systematic exploitation that the Hamas terror organization makes of humanitarian facilities and spaces for terror needs while using civilian population as human shield. At least 57 people have died, 67 more still missing, and more than 69,000 people forced to evacuate their homes due to record floods caused by heavy rains in Brazil's southernmost state of Rio Grande do Sul. The situation shows flooded roads and submerged areas with dozens of flooded houses. The ruling Union for the Republic Party has won a sweeping majority in the country's legislative elections held on April the 20th. Now, provisional results published on Saturday by the Electoral Commission in Togo showed it had won 108 out of the 113 seats in Parliament. The results paved the way for President Faure Gnassingbé to extend his 19-year rule under the new charter following approval of a controversial new constitution. It allows him to take the newly created post of President of the Council of Ministers, a role similar to Prime Minister that is automatically assumed by the leader of the majority party in Parliament. Under the previous constitution, Yasigbe would have been able to run for president just one more time. And the main news again. The Nigerian Air Force said airstrikes by its components of Operations Hadin Kai and World Punch in the northeast and north-central parts of the country have neutralized terrorists and destroyed their hideouts in some communities in Borno and Niger states. And the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja, Most Reverend Ignatius Kaigama, attributed the security challenges in the country to high cost of living. He appealed to the federal government to act decisively, dealing with increasing hunger. And that's News at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde. From all of us here is good night.